Standing on the fringes of the Alpha King's magnificent ballroom, Pin knew her mind ought to be fixed on her own uncertain destiny, while the fiery, music-filled festivities raged on. The moment her baby sister sealed the mating bond this evening, Pin's lifelong duty would officially expire. She had successfully steered 6 siblings into powerful alliances. What came next? Yet her entire focus remained fixed on a tiny boy, maybe 5 years of age, tucked away in a dark corner, hugging his knees tight. There were no ear-piercing screams or meltdowns, just absolute stillness as quiet tears steadily stained his porcelain face.
"Maybe the little one is sick,"
an aristocratic lady murmured, staring at him. "Or demon-touched," her friend whispered back. A deep ache clamped around Pin's heart. 18 years prior, she had experienced that beautiful flutter of life inside herself. She had spent hours dreaming of cradling her own baby, wiping away their sorrows and helping them walk. Every single hope vanished when she lost her pregnancy at just 5 months. Motherhood was a door permanently shut to her. Watching this lonely toddler ache without parental comfort was too much. Digging her fingernails into her skin, she flagged down a servant. "Pardon me," she started. "Would you mind checking on that little guy over there? He looks incredibly upset." The worker followed Pin's gaze, instantly dropping her customer service smile for a look of absolute dread. "Ma'am, whatever you do, do not make eye contact with it," the servant warned in a hushed tone. Completely baffled, Pin blinked. The woman leaned in.
"Are you seriously unaware of what he is?"
She spat. "A toddler," Pin replied defensively.
"A bloodsucker," the servant corrected. "Belongs to Lord Dunstan's clan."
Pin gazed at the kid again, finally understanding the panic. Word had spread that Nightwalkers were crashing tonight's gala, specifically Lord Dunstan, a far-off cousin of the Wolf Monarch. High society women had been gossiping about the man non-stop since dusk. Word is, he's the most drop-dead gorgeous being to ever exist. A woman had swooned earlier, hiding behind a feathered fan. Lethal, too, her peer had chimed in. A single taste of his venom will ruin you. Staring at the tiny silhouette in the shadows, Pin felt absolutely zero terror. "He's literally just a baby," she stated with conviction, shooting the servant a thoroughly disappointed glare. The worker's expression turned to stone. "For all we know, that thing is a century old. Immortals never grow up." "A century-old monster sobbing over a toy?" Pin challenged in disbelief. The worker just shrugged.
"Half the staff has already attempted to comfort it," the maid sighed. "The creature absolutely refuses to calm down."
The harsh dismissal in her voice ignited a fierce, protective spark within Perrin's heart. "Perhaps he requires compassion rather than servitude," she snapped back. Scowling, the servant scuttled away, abandoning Perrin to her seething anger. Pressing her fingernails hard enough to draw blood, she winced at the sudden bite of pain. Though she fought to pay attention to her siblings' ritual, her eyes stubbornly drifted back toward the hidden nook. The little boy went totally silent, shrinking into a tight ball as if hoping to vanish altogether. Acting on pure instinct, Pin hurried across the room and crouched by the shadowed niche. "Hey there," she whispered. The kid flinched, staring in pure panic. Up close, his stunning features were truly breathtaking. He possessed a porcelain complexion, midnight ringlets tumbling over his brow, and irises of a blinding, unnatural sapphire. "My name is Pin," she breathed, maintaining a soothing tone. "Who are you?" He stayed mute for an eternity, completely rigid while shrinking deeper into the wall. "Finley," he breathed. Beaming warmly, Perrin replied, "Lovely to meet you." "And your age?" "5," he gasped out, choking back a quiet cry. That raw shock painted across his tiny face utterly shattered her. When was the last time anybody actually talked to him like a normal kid, instead of treating him like some terrifying monster? She extended an arm to soothe him, only to catch him staring intently at her hand. Tiny droplets of scarlet were welling up inside the deep, half-moon cuts from her own fingernails. His gaze stretched wide, irises swelling as he locked onto the red beads. Realization hit her. "Are you starving, sweetie?" she asked softly. He frantically rejected the idea, refusing to meet her eyes. That desperate denial tugged hard at Perrin's deepest motherly instincts. Despite his ravenous hunger, the kid fought his own impulses. "You are fine," she reassured, holding out her wounded palm. "It is already scabbing over. Us shifters bounce back fast." He peeked back, his expression torn with pure agony. "Go ahead," she urged. After a brief pause, the tiny boy cautiously crept forward. She stayed completely frozen while he grasped her wrist with icy little fingers, pulling the injured skin to his mouth. His whole frame went slack upon tasting it, the heavy anxiety leaving his tiny back. Brushing his midnight hair with her other hand, she suddenly felt warm drops blurring her vision. Throughout this bizarre encounter, a profound maternal bond washed over her, something she hadn't experienced in 18 long years. Suddenly, a presence spoke from the shadows. "What did you just do?" the voice whispered. Though quiet as a chilling breeze, the sound echoed intensely throughout the entire hiding spot. That eerie noise rooted the pair in place. Pin raised her eyes, meeting the horrified gaze of a devastatingly handsome man. His immaculate, godlike face and blonde ringlets screamed one undeniable truth: vampire. The little boy stiffened against her ribs, clearly recognizing the stranger. "What on earth did you do?" the newcomer demanded, his lyrical tone trembling. She reflexively pulled the boy closer. "Look, he was starving, so she stammered. "You offered him your veins." The immortal's eyes darted down to the tiny face remaining buried against her palm. "He was absolutely famished," she shot back. "He's merely a kid." "He is an immortal," the stranger cut in, his tone dropping to a frantic hiss. Stepping nearer, he radiated deep worry rather than danger, keeping his gaze locked on the boy. "And you just doomed him to a fate infinitely crueler than starvation," he whispered. Chapter 1. 60 minutes passed before an attendant guided Pin away from the wild mating festivities. They walked into a hushed corridor where the party's roar dissolved into the solitary thumping of her own pulse. Their path ended at a beautifully sculpted entryway, flanked by a pair of sentries sporting Northern Territory crests. "Lord Drystand is expecting you, ma'am," the guide said softly. Dim flames cast flickering shadows across the secluded parlor and its rich mahogany decor. "I appreciate you taking this meeting," a voice greeted her arrival. Pin jumped slightly. The vampire lord had shifted positions without making a single sound. Standing this near to him actually hurt. Those blonde waves perfectly accented a visage straight out of a Renaissance masterpiece. Yet mere attractiveness didn't cover a bone structure that felt chiseled from marble. "Take a seat," he offered, his velvet tone utterly hypnotic. "How is the boy?" she questioned, snapping back to the reason for this visit. "He is resting at the moment," the noble replied, settling across from her. "Aren't your kind supposed to stay awake?" Pin countered. "Eventually, yes," he conceded. However, his transition happened merely 6 months back. Certain mortal tendencies linger, like slumbering. 6 months, she repeated in shock. "Meaning he truly is 5 years old, nothing more." "Exactly. For all practical purposes, he remains a toddler." Grief darkened the immortal's flawless face. "That is the heartbreaking reality for the young ones," he sighed softly. "Eternally locked inside vessels incapable of aging." He spoke with such agonizing sorrow that Pin barely suppressed the instinct to grab his palm for reassurance. "So you rescued him?" she opted to ask. "I make an effort to locate every single one these days," he stated plainly. "The kids, I mean." "For what purpose?" she blurted out, abandoning her manners entirely. "Because an unsupervised, freshly transitioned immortal toddler poses a lethal threat to everyone, including themselves. I attempt to offer them a semblance of normalcy. I build a safe haven and train them to consume livestock." He maintained unbroken eye contact the entire time. That piercing focus felt equally exhilarating and terrifying, which leads us directly to the problem at hand. A sudden, lethal calm washed over his features, heavily emphasizing the monster hiding beneath that gorgeous exterior. "Who exactly are you?" taking it upon yourself to offer veins to a kid unprompted. She immediately fired up. Who in their right mind ignores a crying baby? I am Lady Layla's sibling, she answered, acting as her escort. A role that naturally concludes after this evening's ritual, I assume. Your assumption is correct, sir, she confessed. Apologies, he offered smoothly. I meant no offense. It just directly impacts our necessary conversation. Regarding what exactly? She pushed out. The meal you provided the boy. His pitch deepened ominously. You have unfortunately backed both of you into a very dangerous corner. She scowled. It was barely a drop. That couldn't possibly cause damage. You severely underestimate how our biology reacts to that. The aristocratic man stood up with lethal grace. The boy was already fighting the livestock diet harder than the rest. By giving him a sample of the real thing, you've awakened a terrible thirst. For your veins, to be exact. Ice flooded her gut. What are you saying? He will probably fixate entirely on your scent, the immortal warned. Nothing else will work anymore. No livestock, no other donors. Just you. All from a single drop? She gasped in panic. He advanced, prowling forward like a hunting cat until he loomed right over her seat. Staring up into his eyes, she felt incredibly tiny and exposed, though a weird electric thrill raced through her. From a single sip, correct, he affirmed. Should this fixation occur and he loses access to your veins, he will wither. Are you saying he'll perish? She breathed out. Yes, and the process is agonizing. The sheer gravity of her mistake crushed the air from her lungs. That innocent boy was going to experience pure torment, all because she wanted to help. Then I will gladly serve as his donor, she declared, standing up tall. The vampire's flawless, icy demeanor actually cracked for a split second. A strange emotion flashed in his eyes. Maybe awe or pure respect. Then his face shifted, swapping shock for deep worry. A brave offer, but entirely too risky, he warned. The kid has zero restraint. He would drain you completely dry in seconds. He might accidentally end your life. I can easily hold him back, she argued stubbornly. I am a shifter. We overpower your kind. Trust me, you'd rather not, he murmured, the velvet timbre of his warning tracing a sudden chill along her vertebrae. Standing by while he agonizes isn't an option, she shot back, exasperation bleeding into her tone. We need a fix. Lord Driston let the silence stretch as hearth flames flickered over his sculpted jaw. A remedy exists, he finally conceded, but it carries strings attached. Spill it, Perrin demanded. A blood tie, he enunciated carefully. Just not with the boy. With you? Her pulse stumbled in shock. Exactly. Once a Nightwalker seals a tether with someone, that person turns thoroughly unappetizing to our kind. The scent loses its allure completely. Tether yourself to my veins, and his thirst for you simply vanishes. It works like an organic shield. I'd execute the rite, just one taste to anchor the connection between us. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. Following the ceremony, you'd relocate with me to my remote northern manor. Sustaining the magic requires me to sample your veins periodically, barely a drop. Perrin cut to the chase. You'd bite me. Plus, your scent wouldn't tempt their fangs. He faced the glass. Being a shapeshifter, your enhanced reflexes keep pace with theirs perfectly. Their social circle is pathetically limited to myself. A fresh face would do wonders for their development. He shot a glance over his shoulder. Naturally, the salary is exceptional. Retreating a few paces, Perrin craved breathing room. So your pitch is, I abandon my territory, become your personal juice box via ancient magic, and babysit fanged toddlers? And all this is strictly to keep Finley safe. Driston held his ground. The ritual grants sanctuary, not enslavement. The dietary aspect is practically negligible, I assure you. Meeting her silence, he pressed, unless there are pups waiting back at your den? A partner expecting your return? That inquiry struck a raw nerve. Nothing like that, she swallowed hard. I'm infertile. A fierce blush immediately scorched her cheeks. Why blurt out her deepest insecurity? Yet as she risked a glance upwards, genuine warmth cracked the immortal's flawless, icy facade for the very first time. In that case, he breathed softly, I possess plenty to share. The sudden, tender reassurance locked a lump in her throat. Perrin stared into the starry abyss, mentally calculating her future. Remain stuck in this hollow, aimless existence, or venture into the frozen unknown with a dangerously gorgeous monster to finally matter. When do we leave? She queried. A flicker of pure astonishment breached the vampire lord's stoic mask. Dipping into an elegantly archaic bow, he sealed her fate. Suddenly, Perrin felt swept up in a lethal, centuries-old fairy tale darker than her wildest nightmares. Chapter 2. Their northbound trek spanned 3 solid days, swapping vibrant woodlands for endlessly bleak, rolling heathlands as the miles vanished. Eventually, frosted evergreens pierced the twilight, standing like silent sentries against the gloom. Perrin had never strayed this far from the pack's borders. The absolute insanity of volunteering to live in a bloodsucker's lair was finally hitting home. Tristan flanked her transport atop an obsidian warhorse, completely unbothered by the plunging temperatures. Little Finley shared the cabin, pressing into Perrin's warmth initially. 24 hours later, the boy was murmuring shy secrets to her. Approaching day 3, the tiny supernatural crashed hard, using her lap as a pillow while his fingers kept a death grip on her skirt. Almost home, the master of the house declared, materializing outside her glass pane. It reveals itself just over this upcoming ridge. Boy, did it ever. A massive Gothic manor dominated the slope, flaunting jagged turrets and dramatic arches, while golden light spilled from ancient masonry into the night. It's breathtaking, Perrin breathed in awe. A cryptic half-smile graced his statuesque mouth. Depending on the day, he countered vaguely. Their coach snaked past heavy wrought-iron barricades, halting before colossal entryways etched with intricate flocks of crows. A rigid, unsmiling matron blocked the threshold, sporting a ruthlessly pinned silver updo. Mrs. Graves, the Lord acknowledged. Meet Lady Perrin. She's taking over childcare duties. The housekeeper's piercing gaze inventoried the shifter. Understood, my lord. The brood is waiting in the eastern parlor. Nearing the heavy mahogany panels, the youngest vampire stealthily laced his tiny fingers through hers. Big sister hates strangers, he muttered covertly. Relax, though. I've got your back. The sheer sweetness of a pint-sized apex predator vowing to keep a lethal shifter safe almost snapped her emotional floodgates open. A trio of unnervingly flawless youths swiveled their heads. 2 females, 1 male, sizing her up with equal parts intrigue and deep suspicion. Listen up, kids, Tristan announced. Lady Perrin, your latest guardian. The eldest sister, undoubtedly Helen, sat up rigidly. Her midnight ringlets framed cherubic features completely ruined by the absolute contempt blazing in her glare. A babysitter? She purred the insult, coating the venom in sugar. We're perfectly fine alone. The other brother immediately leaped forward, cutting her off. A real shapeshifter, Adam marveled, walking laps around Perrin. Can you wolf out right this second? Lord Dustin shot him a warning glare. Maybe later, Perrin promised warmly. Let me unpack first. Nearby, the littlest girl hid behind the sofa. Finley gently pulled Perrin's fingers. That is my little sister, he mumbled softly. She gets bashful. Perrin dropped into a crouch. Hi there, Veronica, she murmured. The child crept forward, hugging an antique doll tight. Are you good at braiding? She peeped in a tiny voice. I would love to style her for you, Perrin beamed. Helen rolled her eyes. Do it yourself, Veronica. She isn't immortal. She will leave us in no time. The vampire lord's tone snapped like a whip. Helen, knock it off. All of you, he demanded. Lady Perrin had an exhausting journey. The housekeeper will take her upstairs. I expect perfect behavior from everyone tomorrow. 3 grudging heads bobbed in agreement. Finley stayed glued to Perrin's hip,
staring at her jugular with a hunger that made her blood run cold.
Finley, his father murmured. The child jumped and quickly retreated.
My apologies, the boy breathed out.
The aristocrat's rigid posture relaxed. We will handle everything this evening, he assured Perrin. Take your time recovering. Yet his anxious gaze betrayed him. Time was running out, and they were fully aware of it. 2 hours passed before a crisp rap hit her door. She swung it open to face a deeply troubled Lord Dustin. Sorry to intrude, he apologized. We have an urgent issue regarding Finley. Ice flooded Perrin's veins at his words. What went wrong? She asked. The housekeeper caught him sneaking into your room during your bath. The pure dread in the vampire's icy stare terrified her. His craving for you is escalating way faster than expected. He is completely obsessed. Perrin closed the distance between them. Is the kid okay? Dustin grabbed her forearm, his freezing grip piercing her clothing. We have him under close guard. We either initiate the mating tie immediately, or you pack up tomorrow. Waiting, he paused. It puts both you and my son at massive risk. Chapter 3. That unspoken reality hovered heavily over the conversation. Despite his gentle nature, a starving Finley meant lethal trouble. Perrin exhaled slowly. She took this job knowing the stakes. This gig required a massive sacrifice to protect everyone involved. Let us get it over with, Perrin declared firmly. Dustin searched her eyes. Are you absolutely sure? This ethereal link is completely permanent. We belong to each other until death. Perrin gave a curt nod. I knew the terms before I accepted. Fear will not make me leave a hurting kid behind. The man murmured his assent and stepped inside her bedroom. He shut them in, the clicking deadbolt echoing like a sealed tomb. Are you prepared for this? He rasped. His supernatural perfection took her breath away again, blonde waves catching the hearth's glow. Absolutely, she breathed out. This connection demands a ceremony, he murmured, gliding toward her with a fluid, ghost-like elegance. Among my people, he added, it mirrors a shifter's claiming process, just without the romantic attachments. So, we are basically getting hitched? Perrin choked out, her lungs suddenly feeling incredibly tight. Essentially, yes, he answered with purely clinical detachment. Are you having second thoughts about this? His sapphire eyes betrayed nothing, while her heart hammered wildly. This felt way too personal now. No, she finally decided. I am staying. Dustin dipped his head in acknowledgement. Step over here then, he ordered. That authoritative tone sent a thrilling shiver down her spine. Approaching until his icy aura washed over her skin, he gently grabbed her fingers. I have to reach your neck, he murmured, his pitch dipping into a gravelly husk. Only a deep bite seals the deal. Her chest heaved with frantic heartbeats. So you will... Exactly. Frigid fingertips traced along her clavicle, landing right on her thrumming vein. I am taking it straight from the source. Take off that wrap, he requested smoothly. Shaking hands pushed the delicate fabric down, abandoning it on an armchair. And your hair, he coaxed. Catching his drift, she yanked out the clips, dumping heavy dark waves off her nape. Bring it in, he growled thickly. Perrin stepped into his personal space, their bodies practically touching. Scared? He murmured softly. Terrified, she confessed, but I am not backing out. A faint smirk graced his mouth before he hauled her waist flush against him. His palm glided up her spine, gripping the back of her head to tilt it perfectly. With his opposite arm locking her hips tight, freezing lips ghosted along her burning flesh, tracing her jugular with agonizing slowness. His touch jolted her racing heartbeat. Just breathe, he murmured softly, his mouth grazing her earlobe. This won't be so bad. Shutting her eyes, she fought to calm her frantic pulse. The vampire's mouth found her neck again, while his embrace secured her tightly against his solid chest. As his lips parted over her flesh, she sensed the distinct prick of pointed teeth. She braced herself for a split second before those sharp incisors pierced her skin completely. A harsh, blinding sting hit her first, echoing alongside the roaring in her head, drawing a deep groan from the man holding her. His initial gulp triggered a fresh jolt of agony, but an unexpected radiating heat quickly blossomed from the wound and washed over her entirely. As the stinging faded away, an intensely bizarre rush took over, pulling a breathless gasp from her lips. This went beyond mere bliss. A melting fire surged through her bloodstream, clouding her thoughts and weighing her down. He adjusted his grip, guiding a hand to the base of her spine to pull her in tighter while claiming his first heavy taste. Feeling him drain her essence, that steady, coaxing rhythm completely dissolved her balance, leaving her utterly dependent on his sturdy frame to keep from falling. A deep, feral growl of pure craving rolled from his chest, echoing deeply between them. He drank again with a fierce desperation, every demanding movement amplifying the euphoria until she practically vibrated in his embrace. Alien visions danced across her mind, glimpses of a past she never lived, lunar rays hitting frosted peaks, and kids playing in an unfamiliar yard. Was she sharing his mind, or just dreaming? It hardly mattered when such absolute ecstasy was rushing freely through her veins. Tilting her neck to give him better access, she molded against him as minutes simply ceased to exist. Nothing remained except his touch on her skin, and a fiery rush that left her floating, yet anchored. Without warning, he broke contact, leaving her breathless and completely spun out. Her balance faltered wildly, saved only by his steadfast grip keeping her on her feet. His irises were nearly pitch black with blown pupils. "It is over, Perrin," he murmured, his raspy voice sending chills down her spine. Words failed her as her mouth refused to cooperate. A hollow ache settled where he had been. "Wait," she croaked, grasping at his shirt without really knowing why. The room tilted sideways. "I have to rest," she breathed out. He scooped her right up, tucking her close. "Exhaustion is normal. This connection needs a moment to anchor." Resting her face against him, she whispered, "Your scent is amazing," breathing in his neck. He practically stumbled. "The venom is speaking for you," he replied, though doubt laced his tone. "Venom?" she mumbled, the word coming out thick. He nodded in response. "Feeding causes us to release a substance that pacifies the target." He studied her expression. "Yet your beast nature should have fought it off." Clarity finally pierced through her mental fog. That utter bliss was totally fake. Merely a biological trick to subdue the meal. "I truly believed you'd be immune," he added, sounding rather tense. He lowered her onto the mattress and pulled up the covers. Losing his body heat drew a soft whine from her. "Don't go," she begged, gripping his fingers. He squeezed his eyes shut, looking agonizingly torn. "That is just the venom talking," he murmured. "And taking another taste right now." He trailed off. "I doubt I could pull away." "Then keep going," she breathed. He gently slipped his fingers free. "You definitely should," he countered, shutting her inside the room. Right before passing out, she realized these past 18 years had felt completely dead compared to tonight. Funny how an immortal predator was the one to finally wake her up. Chapter 4. Morning rays spilling past the drapes stirred her awake. Everything rushed in. The trip, the kids, and especially that intense midnight bite. She traced nothing but unblemished flesh. Her shifter blood wiped away the marks, leaving just a phantom heat. Downstairs, the housekeeper handed over a sealed note from the master. "The kids are ready for you upstairs," the woman mentioned as she tore the envelope. "My lady, keep the young ones busy. A basic scratch is all we need moving forward. Meanwhile, make yourself completely at home." Dristan's detached explanation stirred a confusing whirlwind of emotions inside her. She felt glad for the rules, though strangely let down. A couple of hours passed before Helen critiqued Perrin's final addition to the card tower. "That's completely wrong. Angle it inside, otherwise it falls." A sudden clatter erupted on the opposite side of the playroom, accompanied by a victorious cheer from Adam. "Check out my giant tower!" "Used to be," Veronica gently pointed out. Chuckling, Adam scooped up the pieces to try again. He possessed that exact limitless stamina Lord Driston had mentioned. Right beside Perrin, Finley carefully constructed his personal tower. Every so often he stole a swift glance at her neck before looking away. Time slipped by beautifully, galloping over frost-kissed meadows, enjoying an elegant afternoon brew, and relaxing with books beside the roaring fire. "Are you returning tomorrow?" Veronica questioned, pulling on Perrin's dress while Mrs. Graves arrived to escort the youngsters away. "Absolutely," Perrin swore. "This is my home too, right?" A timid grin spread across the child's face. "Awesome. Your braids are way prettier than Mrs. Graves's." Helen even offered a rigid goodbye bow. A step forward. Total fatigue knocked Perrin out instantly. Barely asleep, a distinct change in the atmosphere jolted her awake. An unnatural chill suddenly flooded the bedroom. Perrin blinked awake, immediately locking onto icy azure irises staring from the opposite side of the mattress. "My lord," she breathed, rising upward. Her heavy lids parted, meeting a hauntingly bright, icy gaze watching her from the foot of the mattress. "My lord," she murmured, rising. Driston remained silent, opting to glide forward and settle onto the edge of her bed. "I anticipated this entire day," he purred, his tone remarkably rougher than before. "Simply craving a single drop." Perrin's pulse hammered wildly. "Really?" A predatory glint ignited in his stare while he bridged the gap. Every second apart felt agonizing. Icy digits skimmed down her neck and mapped her clavicle. Pure agony. His free palm gripped her upper leg over the covers, projecting an icy chill through the cotton. "Permission?" He breathed onto her neck, mouth hovering above her beating vein. She agreed silently, letting his mouth meet her flesh. No fangs, only impossibly soft kisses charting the surface. "This isn't my desire," she eventually panted. A distinct smirk formed against her skin. "Then tell me your craving, darling." "To nourish you," she confessed softly. His grin stretched further, exposing sharp, lethal points that gently prodded her delicate flesh. Perrin bolted upright, palms slamming against her neck. She was entirely alone, bathed completely in silver lunar rays. "Just a nightmare?" she pondered, though the phantom chill of his touch burning through her covers left her profoundly doubtful. Immortals traveled without a sound, vanishing like ghosts. Was it possible he had physically visited her room? Tossing the blankets aside, she needed absolute proof. Soon, the intimidating mahogany entrance to his office towered ahead. Perrin frantically flattened her dress, fighting to slow her racing pulse. Before she could chicken out, the heavy wood unlatched. Lord Driston occupied the threshold, looking like a flawless statue. "Lady Perrin," he murmured, moving out of her path. "Come in." She slipped inside, intensely conscious of his towering figure and the deliberate gap he kept between their bodies. "Did you enjoy your time with my wards?" "I really did," she answered. "They are incredibly unique, absolutely fascinating kids." True fondness briefly softened his rigid expression. "That they are. Helen often proves difficult, admittedly." "She guards you fiercely," Perrin noted. "Honestly, she protects this whole family." Driston gave a solemn nod. "I discovered her at 12 years old. 4 years have passed." He strolled toward the hearth, keeping his strict boundaries intact. "Did Finley exhibit any anxiety in your presence?" "Not at all," Perrin swore. "Just a bit timid, completely lacking that previous obsession." "Then our connection is succeeding," Lord Driston sighed, clearly comforted. Heavy, uncomfortable tension immediately flooded the quiet room. Perrin fought to connect this aloof gentleman to the ravenous lover from her sleep. "I've experienced certain visions," she confessed, face burning crimson, "or I assume they were. Sharing blood forges a psychic bridge between us," he stated with absolute detached professionalism. "Nighttime illusions happen frequently, especially right at the beginning." "Are you watching my mind?" Perrin blurted, utter embarrassment scorching her veins. A surprised chuckle left his lips. "Never. Your subconscious and fantasies belong solely to you." Pure comfort flooded her chest. Yesterday's meal proved far too aggressive, Tristan suddenly announced out of nowhere. A tiny slice yields enough nourishment, completely avoiding the intimacy of a traditional bite. Snatching a miniature silver blade off his workspace, he added, "Slicing your forearm works perfectly. We are spacing these sessions out next week, too. I figure I can easily survive on a single monthly draft of your veins moving forward." Perrin accepted the weapon, gently dragging the edge over her flesh. Lord Dristan dropped to his knees, gripping her arm with icy digits. "It is going to be fast," he assured her evenly. Yet the initial brush of his lips against her fresh wound triggered massive tremors. He shut his eyes, ebony lashes contrasting sharply against his porcelain face, while a quiet moan slipped out. A faint, undeniable whimper slipped out. Drawing back, his blood-slicked mouth opened as he released a trembling, unnecessary breath. Reality crashed back down. Standing up, he rebuilt his emotional walls, his gaze freezing over and his jaw tightening. "My gratitude," he stated stiffly. "We are done here." Pen gave a mute nod, her voice entirely lost. Though her flesh knit back together quickly, the phantom heat of his kiss remained. "Tomorrow evening?" she whispered faintly. Tristan Pen slipped out in silence, her mind far more scrambled than before. Chapter 5. Scarlet fall foliage surrendered to icy blizzards, which ultimately melted into the gentle thaw of springtime. Helen started requesting her company for twilight strolls, and she successfully channeled Adam's chaotic vigor. Little Finley stared up at her with utter devotion, while Veronica's sketches showcased a newly thriving spirit. Yet those triumphs felt meaningless compared to the beautiful agony of being near Dristan. Their bi-weekly ceremony occurred inside his office, flames glinting off the metallic blade, the calculated slice over her veins. She would hold her breath as he dropped to his knees, his icy fingers wrapping around hers. He kept strict boundaries, even when his mouth traced her skin a second too long, or raw starvation flashed in his post-meal gaze. Her nocturnal fantasies intensified wildly. She imagined freezing touches tracing galaxies over her flushed body, sharp teeth biting half-moons into her neck, and agony melting into ecstasy. Jolting awake with a ragged breath, she occasionally detected his distinct aroma nearby, suggesting he had been observing her slumber. Severe January snowstorms effectively trapped everyone inside the sprawling estate. Being locked indoors amplified their electric dynamic. She crashed into his granite torso twice in the hallways, his fingers reflexively steadying her before he retreated with a gruff pardon. "His gaze never really leaves you, even from afar," Helen noted during a matinee. "Look at the paintings. The subjects track your movements, exactly how he stares." Pen already knew. She frequently sensed ancient, heavy stares tracking her from those canvas faces. Come April, his ironclad control shattered a bit more at every feeding. He once stroked the wound with his tongue prior to biting, a fiercely erotic move that made her cry out. She gathered his history in scattered shards, slowly assembling the puzzle of his isolated, endless lifespan. Saving supernatural orphans gave him a reason to live. "He believes he is damned," Adam previously confessed. He called everlasting life a brutal sentence, not some kind of blessing. Come May, their endless game of cat and mouse pushed Pen right to the edge. Then, exactly 5 months post-arrival, the dynamic permanently shifted. Framed by lunar beams, Dristan faced the glass, completely ignoring her. "The kids requested a trip to the upcoming town fair," she mentioned. "That is ill-advised," he countered. "Large gatherings overstimulate their senses." "Their control is improving," Pen pointed out. "They crave a regular life." Spinning around, the silvery glow highlighted his harsh profile. "They are monsters, Pen," he snapped. "Forever." "And so are you," she murmured quietly. "We both are. But we still survive. Slice your arm now," he deflected, completely pivoting the conversation. Pen stared at the silver blade. "I refuse," she shot back, dropping the weapon. He froze completely. Abandoning her seat, Pen marched directly into his space. "I am exhausted by your secret stares when my back is turned. I am sick of waking up desperate for your hands." You have spent 5 months battling your own desires, she stated, halting mere inches away. Try fighting me, she breathed, baring her sensitive neck. His gaze turned pitch black, locking onto the frantic throb vibrating against her neck. Pen, he growled, dangerously, palms shaking as they floated just millimeters above her collarbones, fighting the urge to grab. You require a full existence, not some immortal phantom, he argued. You need a husband who provides a real tomorrow. I am infertile, she confessed, stepping even closer. Plus, my past 18 years were entirely hollow anyway. Your eternal lifespan does not terrify me, Dristan. My true terror is remaining completely unanchored. To the world, and to you. His stoic facade finally shattered. Frosty fingertips stroked her collarbone, worshipful at first, then fiercely claiming. If I begin, he rasped, I cannot promise to quit. Then do not. He crashed his mouth against hers, entirely suffocating her gasp. It was a ravenous, frantic collision of ancient, pent-up lust. Though his kiss felt icy, an absolute inferno sparked everywhere his hands roamed. In utter silence, he scooped her up, navigating a secret corridor to his bedroom, where flickering flames illuminated heavy ebony drapes. Time stopped as he scanned her features for any hesitation. Met with pure willingness, he finally dipped his chin toward her jugular. Final warning, he breathed. Pen arched her spine backward in mute surrender. Pulling her flush, his sharp teeth grazed her flesh before sinking deeply. She inhaled sharply when the stinging bite dissolved into molten heat rushing through her bloodstream. Reality tilted as their pulses synchronized, shivering through her core the second their tether flared to brilliant life. A primal purr rumbled against her throat with his swallows, triggering unfamiliar, silver-lit hallucinations of ancient joys. Pulling back, he pressed a burning mouth to hers, tasting of absolute worship. That sharp crimson flavor somehow made the moment closer, weaving their souls into a dark communion. Lowering her onto the mattress, Dristan stripped away her dress under the hearth's glow. His chilled fingers skimmed her flushed flesh, his caress electric from the immortal toxin racing through her. Perrin, darling, he exhaled softly. The universe entirely vanished the instant they finally became one. Craving met ecstasy. Frost collided with flame. A seamless union. That supernatural toxin amplified everything, melting her essence entirely into his. A profound vitality surged, completely erasing decades of hollow solitude as though they never truly happened. Tangled in dark linens later on, anchored by his icy form, Perrin experienced total resurrection. Centuries on this earth, he whispered, yet I've never known such depths. She kissed his palm, tucking against his chest just as morning sunlight struck the outside spires. Chapter 6. Vernal blooms melted into sun-drenched July. Shifting weather wasn't the only thing altering the manor. Joyous giggles now bounced off formerly desolate hallways. Fresh bouquets brightened surfaces long buried in cobwebs, while Perrin basked in a euphoric reality she previously considered impossible. I truly believed my shot at this was over, she confessed one humid summer night, tangled alongside Dristan across his sprawling mattress. A shot at what exactly? He murmured, lazily sketching invisible shapes onto her naked collarbone. A real family. That flawlessly sculpted face lit up with a now frequent, blinding grin. With fluid mischief, he leaned over and snatched a morsel right off her dinner dish. I completely forgot just how good fresh fruit tastes, he noted, the sheer contentment in his eyes warming her chest. Craving food despite his immortal biology gave him a remarkably mortal vulnerability, proving to her that he was finally embracing the living world once more. However, at a holiday banquet honoring Adam's tracking victory, Dristan downed countless goblets of Merlot, bringing a highly unusual rosy tint to his alabaster skin. Every additional sip stripped his restraint until chuckles flowed effortlessly. "Are you actually intoxicated?" she murmured with amused shock upon retreating to their bedroom. "Don't be ridiculous," he scoffed. "Liquor does nothing to my kind."
Still, he was incredibly buzzed, slurring his typically rigid vocabulary while delivering exceptionally sloppy, passionate kisses. Perrin found the behavior ridiculously endearing, even as a nagging instinct questioned why the booze worked whatsoever. Several weeks passed before she roused to see him lying there, not standing guard or engrossed in a book, but genuinely dead to the world. Nudging his arm lightly caused him to jolt awake, blinking back a dazed fog before his gaze finally focused. "Morning, darling," he mumbled while bolting upright. "Guess my mind was wandering a bit." "You mean completely passed out?" she joked, masking the sudden anxiety in her gut. He just chuckled, dragging her into a fiery embrace that effectively melted her worries away. The strange occurrences kept piling up, though. Midway through a nighttime board game against Adam, the vampire literally dozed off, eyelids drooping. The way he took her blood had shifted from early arrangements. Whenever his fangs pierced her nowadays, it felt completely intertwined with their romance, a carnal act destroying their senses. Lately, however, his appetite mysteriously shrank, frequently stopping after just a couple of brief drops. "Isn't that too little?" she questioned during a crisp autumn evening. "I've had plenty," he countered, immediately diving for her collarbone to deliberately derail the conversation. That clever evasion could have succeeded had she not spotted him massaging a secret headache, or explicitly noticed him cringing at the kid's rowdy outdoor antics. A bizarre, inexplicable mutation was taking hold of his immortal body. Heading into the fall, his supernatural physical limits faltered. He actually fumbled a wooden training weapon while showing Adam some sparring techniques, letting it noisily crash down. Later that evening, with the house completely silent, Perrin discovered her lover glued to the hearth's dancing flames. "Don't try to change the subject," she announced, stepping inside. "You're sick. You're passing out randomly. Your reflexes are shot. You totally zoned out at the dining table." He remained absolutely speechless for an agonizing minute. Finally, releasing a heavy, soul-deep exhale, he locked eyes with her. "I've walked this earth for more than 500 years. Maybe immortality simply carries an expiration date for my kind." It was a terrible excuse, and neither of them bought a single word. "How long has this been happening?" she demanded, instinctively dreading the truth. He looked away, clearly ashamed. "Right about the time our feeding became a romantic bond." The unspoken horror settled heavily around the room. "Drink right now," she commanded, immediately baring her wrist. "Take a real drink. None of those tiny tastes." Over the ensuing month, Perrin buried herself in texts, hunting for clues regarding immortal lycanthrope connections. Several old manuscripts noted that nightwalkers could tie themselves to numerous mortal donors, establishing a so-called feeding harem. This kept the immortals nourished without draining anyone dry. Yet no books explained the consequences of drinking solely from a werewolf long-term. Meanwhile, Dristan kept wasting away. Tragedy hit during a freezing autumn gathering for Helen. Dristan fainted mid-speech, plunging into a blistering 3-day fever. Perrin stayed glued to his bedside. Panic gripped her as he convulsed wildly, screaming out in forgotten ancient tongues. Awakening from a restless slumber on day 4, she discovered Dristan staring back at her with perfectly lucid eyes. "You seem exhausted," he rasped out. A shocked giggle bubbled up from her throat. "Seriously? That is your grand statement after almost dying?" He scowled, fighting to sit up, though the strain obviously exhausted him. With his muscles shaking uncontrollably, he muttered, "Aren't we being a bit theatrical?" Perrin just scoffed. "I am the one destroying you," she finally admitted. "My werewolf veins are toxic." Dristan immediately argued back. "Give me another explanation then," she snapped. "Your health tanked the second we tied our souls together. You have faded away for ages, and then this sickness hit." Saying aloud that she was murdering her soulmate felt impossible. He grabbed her fingers, though his hold felt shockingly frail. "I might have found a cure," she offered nervously. "Those grimoires I read claim your species can tether themselves to several mortal vessels at once. If you claimed a different mate and drank their veins—" "Absolutely not," he shot back instantly. "You are my bride," he declared. "You bore my children. I refuse to taint our vows. It is entirely out of the question. Except you are fading, she sobbed as her defenses broke. Hardly, he argued, dragging her against his unnaturally fever-heated chest. Crying softly, she realized his stubborn honor was going to put him in an early grave. Later that evening, while Dristan slept heavily, Perrin lingered nearby, tracking his shallow, uneven breathing. An agonizing but vital choice took root in her head. She refused to let him perish and orphan their beloved kids. Shaking uncontrollably, she drafted 3 separate goodbye notes under the flickering wax flames. Packing merely a tiny duffel of basics, Perrin vanished from the estate into the freezing autumn darkness. Chapter 7. Perrin hiked for 24 hours, drifting across the frost like a phantom. Come dusk, she hit a tiny settlement hidden past the woods. Warm illumination spilled from cabin panes while gray soot drifted out of rooftop vents. Getting closer, a distinct aroma hit her nose, something deeply recognizable but surprising. A fellow lycanthrope. A female lounged on a porch, eyeing Perrin intensely. Her stance, the distribution of her mass, and her angled chin screamed werewolf. "You wandered far from home turf, sibling," the stranger hollered out. Perrin paused awkwardly. "Just a traveler on the move," she answered nervously. The seasoned local scrutinized her for quite a while. "Bullshit," the lady deadpanned. "You are fleeing." Before Perrin could even argue, the stranger closed the distance. "Name is Vara. I rent the space over the forge. Crash at my place tonight." She then cooked up a basic broth, dairy, and loaf dinner. "All right," she prodded after Perrin finished eating. "Spill why a solitary lichen is roaming in this blizzard." Perrin ended up confessing the entire ordeal. She detailed the sanguine tether, their kids, their joyful life, and Dristan's bizarre physical collapse. "Hold on," Vara muttered carefully. "He needs to forge a profound tie with a stranger that equals your marriage." Hearing it phrased that brutally made her sick. "Exactly," Perrin whimpered. "I guess we would split his affections." "Meaning your man must step out on you to survive." Vara looked utterly floored. "Pretty much, yeah." The veteran shifter sighed heavily. Note to self, avoid wedding a bloodsucker. Way too much drama. Standing up to clear the dishes, she added, "Go to bed. Sunrise brings fresh perspectives." Perrin crashed on the spare mattress, immediately blacking out. Dawn broke, casting a weak, frosty glow across the bedroom. Right after throwing her clothes on, murmurs drifted from the lounge. Vara's deep pitch mingled with a masculine tone that froze Perrin solid. Dristan. Against all logic, she recognized those inflections instantly. That flawless articulation and ancient melodic rhythm were unmistakable. Make it make sense. She masked her scent, hiked for 24 hours straight, and kept her destination totally secret. Creeping quietly toward the exit, she leaned her head against the timber frame, desperately trying to eavesdrop on their chat. "Have any wanderers passed by lately?" Dristan asked, his words strained by fiercely suppressed panic. "Brunettes journeying solo aren't exactly rare around here," Vera answered with a casual shrug. "None really stand out." Tristan's tone shattered into pure anguish. "I'm begging you. That's my wife, and our kids are absolutely broken. Tell me if you know where she went." Perrine reached her breaking point, shoving the entryway open to reveal herself. He faced the glass panes, turned away from her. Yet the stiff tension locking his frame was painfully obvious. The hinge squeaked, making him spin around. The sheer, vulnerable yearning lighting up his face completely knocked the wind out of her. He breathed her name reverently. They lunged forward simultaneously, completely obliterating the gap. He banded his arms around her frame, pulling her tightly against his chest while she held on with equal desperation. "How did you track me down?" she asked. "I'd hunt you anywhere," he replied simply. Stepping back, she studied his features. "You shouldn't be here. You haven't recovered." "I'm tougher than I look," he cut in. "Return to us, Perrine. The kids are lost without you. So am I." Hot moisture tracked down her face. "It's impossible. You're fading away, and you stubbornly refuse the truth. Feeding on me is lethal for you. Hold on, Vera interjected. This guy is your spouse? You claimed he was undead. He is, Perrin verified. Vera paced around the man. Appears utterly mortal, she observed flatly. Carries the scent, too. Absolutely a regular guy. Zero question. I promise you, lady, I belong to the night, Tristan countered, projecting haughty indignation. Not anymore you aren't, Vera declared. He's sick, Perrin argued. Losing strength and dozing off, which his kind never do. I know bloodsuckers, Vera dismissed casually. They reek of rotting apples and graves. You just give off everyday guy energy. Tristan pitched sideways abruptly, prompting Perrine to steer him toward a fireside seat. How long since your last meal? Vera inquired. We don't consume mortal sustenance. Tristan blinked in bewilderment. Well, living folks do. Vera shocking Perrin completely, her husband ogled the platter with undeniable craving. Pausing briefly, he snatched a dinner roll, followed by some deli cuts. This makes zero sense, Perrin murmured. How can this happen? Pretty straightforward, Vera remarked. He's mortal today. Mortals require grub. He belonged to the night, though, Perrin pushed back. He drained me for seasons. You're a changeling, Vera interjected. Our kind regenerates quickly. Maybe your veins cured his condition. Tristan lowered his cutlery. Are you implying my wife's essence erased my immortal curse? I'm not implying a single thing, Vera shot back. Just sharing what my scent glands pick up. You were a bloodsucker. Now you aren't. That defies all logic, Perrin gasped quietly, despite the undeniable proof staring right back. Her lover possessed a rosy complexion, an appetite for actual meals, and a totally altered aura. Guess it doesn't, Vera nonchalantly replied. So, are you heading home to your kids, or just loitering around my house staring blankly until sundown? Tristan grasped his wife's palms, his skin radiating the undeniable, comforting warmth of a living being. Our little ones, he gasped, locking his gaze with Perrine. If shifter magic reverses the immortal curse, our babies might actually mature. Perrin exhaled in awe. Grow older properly. Vera cast a sharp glare. Priorities first. You both require heavy slumber. Gesturing toward the man, she escorted the couple into her spare bedroom. Figure everything else out once your brains aren't completely fried. The latch barely clicked shut before Tristan hauled Perrin firmly against his chest. Tumbling onto the tiny mattress, they were utterly drained, craving nothing except the raw comfort of touch. Never abandon me like that again, he pleaded softly into her locks. It would break me. Never again, Perrine vowed. Forgive me. Drifting off into deep unconsciousness, her fading mental image featured their 4 kids waiting patiently back indoors. Little ones who finally possessed a shot at the mundane existence robbed from their grasp, entirely thanks to a frantic, hopeless union morphing unexpectedly into the most magnificent blessing possible. 36 months slipped away following that frigid afternoon when the couple unearthed the glorious reality. Rather than acting as lethal poison, shapeshifter essence actually reversed the undead curse. Resting upon a marble seat out back, Perrine observed her husband instructing their boy on flawless blade choreography. Bright dawn rays illuminated his golden locks, currently peppered with subtle gray wisps along the edges. A permanent trophy of his resurrected mortal status displayed with humble satisfaction. Dad is losing his edge, Helen noted, claiming a spot beside her mother. Being 14, the teen remained stuck mid-transition, retaining her eternal youth while slowly thawing under the miraculous influence of maternal genetics. Keep your voice down, her mom playfully scolded, even though everyone recognized the patriarch would merely chuckle at the cheeky critique. On the opposite lawn, the other siblings engaged in some complex, imaginary match, remaining entirely ageless and boasting that supernatural liquid agility belonging only to nightwalkers. The reversal journey was agonizingly gradual. Sharing her blood with multiple immortals posed too great a risk, so Pear started with Helen, who fiercely claimed the vanguard. Being the senior sibling meant enduring decades trapped inside a juvenile shell, agonizingly aware of her own mentally aging intellect. "Is it my go yet?" Adam would frequently press, his intense envy evident while observing his sister's face age and her stature slowly increase. They consistently assured him his moment was approaching. Following Helen's full recovery, Adam stood next in line, preceding Veronica, leaving Finley for last. This arduous process might consume over 10 years, yet unprecedented optimism fueled them. Shielding his vision from the daylight, Dan shouted out to Pin, "Could you demonstrate that weapon stripping technique for Adam, just like you did with his sister?" "Absolutely," she agreed while standing up. Strolling through the courtyard, she absent-mindedly stroked her level abdomen, harboring their developing infant. An unbelievable blessing they once considered entirely unattainable. Later that evening, while the youngsters slumbered, Pin and Dustin lingered outside their bedroom terrace, observing the lunar glow illuminate the northern timberland. Pulling her tight to ward off the nocturnal breeze, he wrapped a protective hold around her midsection, a mortal feeling he now deeply cherished. "Do you harbor any regrets over surrendering your eternal existence?" Pin whispered. Dawn pondered her inquiry carefully. "An infinite lifespan holds zero value lacking purpose and affection," he eventually responded. Moving his palm to cover hers atop the developing baby, he declared, "Sharing a single temporary lifespan alongside our household far outweighs suffering forever in isolation." Melting against his chest, Pin thoroughly enjoyed the rhythmic thumping radiating beneath her face. "Aging side by side is our destiny," she whispered, declaring a vow rather than asking. "Absolutely," Deaston confirmed, planting his lips softly against her hairline. "Plus, we get to witness every single one of our kids mature right along with us eventually." Watching constellations slowly dot the twilight canopy, Pin reflected on the wildly unlikely journey leading up to this exact moment. An accidental meeting during a pairing ritual spiraled into an urgent sanguine pact, culminating in this incredibly beautiful surprise. Previously, their identities centered around deep deprivations, her inability to conceive, his stripped mortality, and the youngsters' stolen destinies. Underneath that expansive stellar canopy, they finally united as a complete entity rather than shattered fragments. Pure survival instincts ultimately blossomed into an absolute treasure. This clan wasn't stitched together through destiny or genetics, but built entirely upon stubbornly choosing affection over adversity. Hey guys, fingers crossed you loved this tale. It leaned heavily into dark, romantic vibes today. Must be that spooky October energy rubbing off on me. Drop a message down below sharing your thoughts, especially if you want extra content hitting this exact aesthetic. Massive thanks for tuning in, and catch you all during the upcoming upload.